Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's learning webinar. My name is Chantel, and today we're going to talk about catalog management, how to add more things to your catalog, how to move them around to make it more efficient so that when you're using it day to day, you can find the things that you want quickly and easily. After the broadcast, we're going to open up the chat panel where you can type in any questions that you might have about catalog management, and I'll be able to answer those live during today's webinar. Following the entire presentation, I'll email you out a booklet so you can read through all the elements that we did cover in today's class. So let's get started and look at catalog management. So the first thing I'm going to do is add in some new elements to my catalog and then show you how I can move them around and delete out things that I don't really need in my catalog any longer. So first of all, I'm going to bring in a block I found out on the internet. So I'm going to import it through our object wizard. And I will bring that through as interior furniture or accessories, no matter either one. I'll just call it new custom element is fine. I've saved it out on my desktop, and I'll bring this one in right here. It's a dining table. And let me just change that to furniture and select that again, just so we know we've got it in the right category as well. So I'm bringing in this new element. I'm going to call it new custom element, but eventually I'm going to want to change that name once I get it in my catalog. I want to be able to show you how to do that as well. I like the way it's orientated. It looks great in 3D. I'll just add in the outline as my 2D face of it. Next and finish. Here's this great table. Now, this table that I brought in is only part of this document, because when you bring something in using File, Import, Object Wizard, you're just bringing it into that document for that particular project. It's not part of your final catalog. To add it to your catalog so it's there for future projects, you go up to the Catalogs option under File, and there you'll see Save Element to Catalog. So when I select that, you'll notice that my cursor changes. It's wanting me to select the element that I want to add into my catalog. I pick it, and it says, would you like to save new custom element? That's the name I gave it when I was importing it to the catalog. Well, yes, I do. So I hit yes. Do I have anything else on this particular project that I also want to select and add to the catalog? If I say yes, it'll allow me to go on and pick further, but I'm going to say no, that's the only thing that I have so far. So what it's doing now is saving my catalog. It noticed that I was saving it to the catalog, and it wants to make sure it saves it so it's there. And if I look to my catalog to the right, it will be under my interior furniture, and you can see that it gave it a new element, new custom element, and it's saved under this directory that it makes on the time of import. It doesn't try to shove it into one of the existing folders. It creates a new folder, and then I can move it around afterwards. And I will show you how to move that too. When you add things in like that, you can keep it as the one project, as I mentioned, or keep it as your catalog. And there's other ways to bring in different elements. So if I come back up to File and I go to Import, you'll also see there's BIM to Catalog. So someone has made a grouping of Envisioneer objects, and they want to share them with me, so they save them as a BIM file. And now I can BIM them into my catalog, that entire grouping of things they sent over. So if I say BIM to Catalog, it'll take me out to my hard drive to find that BIM file that was sent to me. I saved it on my desktop, and I click Open. And that will open up a dialog box where on the right-hand side, it has the BIM file that was sent to me. And on the left-hand side, it has my catalog. So when I'm looking at the elements that I want to bring into my catalog, on the right, I can look at the different elements. There's interior lighting. There's one light. So when I bring it over to my catalog, it's going to adopt those same folders. So under interior lighting, if I didn't have a ceiling lights folder, it's going to create it on the fly. And underneath that, it's going to create the subfolder pendant lights. and in there is my light that it's going to bring over. It also brings over any attributes that are attached to that light, meaning if there is specific materials with that light, it's going to bring them over as well. So you can see this finish of this porcelain finish is going to come over because it's on that light, or this bronze color is also going to come over. So when you create a BIM file to share with another computer, not only does it send over the element, but any properties to it as well. So materials or different line types or hatch patterns that were associated to it as well, they all come over and you can bring those over. So if ultimately all you really wanted was that bronze color, you really didn't care about the light, I could just hit that bronze color and say transfer. So it's going to send it over to my catalog. It's not going to bring the light over, just the one thing that I highlighted. If I wanted it all to come over, I would come up to the very top of this list at the right-hand side of the BIM project that I'm bringing over and tell it to bring over the entire document and hit transfer. So then it's going to bring over the folders, the light object itself, all the materials and line types that I want to bring over. So if you're creating a BIM file, it doesn't have to be necessarily just objects. It can be line styles and hatch patterns that you want to share with another computer as well. So once I have those transferred over to my catalog, I simply click OK, and now those are added into my catalog as well. So what I want to show you then is how can I manage all these elements that are in my catalog. So when I'm going in and adding new elements or creating something on the fly, sometimes it can become messy. So how do I change things around? Because looking at my catalog, it doesn't give me access to move things. I can right-click in here, add new elements in. I can copy elements that are already part of my catalog, edit them, and change their properties, and delete them. So on the fly, these are things you can do when you're working with the catalog in a project. So if you're creating some furniture and want to change something about it before you insert it, you can edit that element or copy it, make a copy of it, and change the new copy of it if you wanted to. But I'm going to come down here to the element manager, and this brings me into the catalog itself. So right now I'm working right in the catalog, and this is where I can make even more changes. So you can see that it's going to come up and it's going to be highlighted on the last element that I was highlighted on, and that was that 5-drawer filing cabinet under my interior furniture. And we can see that new custom element that I brought in from that SketchUp file that I found out on the internet. So from there, I could say I'm going to give this table a new name, and I'll call it Raw Edge Table. And now that it's called the Raw Edge Table, you can see here on the side here, let me click to add that in. I'm going to move it, and then that'll take on the new name. I'm going to hold down my left mouse button with it highlighted, and I'm going to move it to a different place. So see how I can bring it up here to desks and under glass top desk. So now under desks, I see my Raw Edge Table. So I'm just going to collapse some of these folders so I can bring it up here. So I've got it right at the top of my table list. So now under tables, I've got my Raw Edge Table. I've reorganized it by just holding down my left mouse button and dragging it up. So now if I look back down in that root node folder, I only have a copy of this table that I brought in before. I no longer want the table, so I'm going to right-click here and hit delete. And it's going to tell me that, yes, I want to delete it, or no, oops, that was a mistake. Yes, I do want to get rid of it. And if I look back down now, the only thing left is that folder, which is empty. So I'm going to right-click and delete it out as well and say, yes, that's a permanent change that I want to make. It's now gone. So now my table, under my dining table is there with my Raj table. I've moved it, I've renamed it to be in a place where I can find it logically. I know it's going to be the table I'm going to use the most, so I move it to the top of my list. If there was another table, perhaps this joint dining table, that I knew I used even more, holding down the leftmost button and dragging it up is going to move it then to the top of the list. And I highly recommend that you do that. If you noticed in the list that you're doing a lot of scrolling to find the elements that you want to insert, move them to the top of the list. That's not just for simple things like the table that I brought in, but more importantly, things like walls, things that you're drawing on a regular basis. So if you know it's very unusual for you to draw any kind of masonry wall, brick or stone, move it out of the first category here. If you know that you're mainly going to be using siding, take the siding and move it up in the list so that it's the first category in the list of walls. Then you don't have to scroll through that list anymore. And you'll notice that we've organized the walls by size, so it goes from 2 by 4 to 2 by 6. If you know that you really don't use 2 by 4 exterior walls very often anymore, move them to the bottom. Hold down that leftmost button and drag them down, and that'll take them to the bottom of the list. So you can reorganize things based on what you use the most. We organized them by size, and then we went through and put in them in groups, so cement board siding, wood siding, vinyl, reorganize them which best suits you so you eliminate the scroll all the time. And then from there, you can keep going through all of those different elements and reorganizing again. So I would take siding veneer. I'm going to bring it right back underneath my exterior framed folder by bringing it right down here and sliding it down. So under exterior framed, I have my siding veneer. And then I have my masonry, so that when I collapse exterior walls, I then have my interior walls and then my block. So you can move things around within the folders themselves to make sure that what you're looking for is always on top. And finding those elements that you've imported so that you can, again, put them in the right category. So if I look under lighting now for the light that I brought in previously as well, interior lighting, we have all of the different lights. So we had ceiling lights, and then we had pendant lights, and then there's my emery island light that I brought in. And we can see all of the different features of it that was brought over in that BIM file. But if I know that that island light isn't part of the pendant lights that I want to bring in, maybe I want to have and create some subdirectories where I have single lights like this bulb light, and then I have drum lights, and then I have island lights that are different pendants, different types of pendants. Maybe I want to make even more subcategories. There's nothing stopping you from doing that as well. So under pendant lights, if I highlight that folder, I can right click in there, and when I'm right clicking, I can see the opportunity to add more elements or add groups. I'm going to add a group, so it'll become a subgroup under pendant lights, and I'll call it just multi-fixture. So under pendant lights, I now have multi-fixture lights. And then I can take emery light and I can move it up so that it's sitting inside that folder. So under multi-fixtures now I have emery island lights. Whatever helps to keep your elements organized, if it's by creating more folders and more subgroups, or moving just the items to the top of the list that you know that you are going to use the most. I also recommend, and I say this with caution, to remove the items that you know you'll never use. So if you're looking through the lights and you see this ceiling fan with lights and think, I will never use that, I would get rid of it if you don't think you'll ever use it. There might be, maybe I could use it, then keep it. It's easier to keep it there and just look past it than it is to try to find it and bring it back in again. But the more elements you have in the catalog, the more elements you have to scroll through when you're trying to find those key elements that you are looking for. So if you know, that's something you don't like, you wouldn't include it in your designs ever, then right-click on it and delete it out, and it's gone. Now, with that being said, sometimes you'll come up against the option that you can't get rid of something. It's not allowing it to be deleted. As an example, I'm going to go to our members group here, and if I go to our 2x4 or 2x6 and try to right-click on it and hit delete, it's saying deleting this is going to be permanent. Do you want to proceed? I'm going to say yes, and it's going to instantly come back to me and say, this element can't be deleted because it's being used by something else. So if I'm using a 2x6 in something else, I can't get rid of it. Where would I be using a 2x6? Well, in my wall definition. So if I look at my 2x6 interior wall, part of its definition is a framing member, and you'll see it's using that 2x6. So it can't get rid of it because something else depends on it. So if you ever get that message that this can't be deleted, it's because something else is using it and depends on it, like a wall, like a floor, like a ceiling when I'm thinking of framing elements, so you can't get rid of it. Or it might simply be a trim element. I'll never be able to get rid of the 3/8 by 5-inch MDF baseboard from my catalog listing until I flush it out of all the walls that it currently exists in. So that baseboard can't be removed. That's trying to save you from deleting something that, oops, you really meant to keep because you're using it. You have to get rid of all instances of it being used before it can be deleted. Another helpful element when looking at your catalog is when you want to make massive changes to elements. So you're looking at your walls and you want to change something about all of your walls. So I've got the 2x4 interior wall highlighted. I'm going to hold down my shift key and I'm going to select the last wall in that list, the 2x6 garage wall. Now they're all highlighted. You can see that they're all blue. And looking over here in their corresponding information, you can see right at the top, 2x6 garage house wall load bearing is red. The red indicates that you've selected multiple objects and they all have a different name. So it's heeding you that this is something that's different for every single element, and the name absolutely should be. If I go to the basic tab, you can see that also the width has different widths because I've got a combination of 2x4 and 2x6 walls. So it's just warning me, before you change this value, take a better look to make sure you really want to change that value. But I could come through here and make massive changes. So if I knew that I was going to be using a different interior surface, right now it's got a 1/2 inch for drywall, maybe I was going to use something else, I could change the width of all of them at the exact same time. Or I could give them all an R value at the same time. So it's not just going to have it in the one wall, every wall here is going to have it. So if I said the cavity R value is going to be R20, that's going to affect every wall that's highlighted. If I go to the top and bottom tab, I can tell all of them to stay level, or maybe I want all of them to automatically extend. It's going to change them all at the same time. Or if I wanted to look at the trim. Looking here at the trim page, you'll notice that the ability to change them is grayed out. I can't change trim over multiple products at the same time. Trim is something you have to do one wall at a time. You'll notice select and delete, that's all grayed out. I can't pick on any of those elements. If I go to the appearance tab, I can change the appearance of all my walls at the same time. So if you find that maybe the paint color on the interior surfaces, you don't want to use the default Revere Pewter by Benjamin Moore, you have another pink color that you want to use as a default, select the left and the right side of the interior wall of all of these walls at the same time. Click on the material swatch that's there, and then it'll bring up your catalog of choices, and you can tell it that you much prefer the Stonington Gray. And click OK, and now all of those walls are updated to Stonington Gray. I'll click on the Quantity tab. Now this again will be a little bit different for those of you that are using Pro Architect versus those of you that are using Building Essentials and Construction Suite. Our Pro Architect clients will see nothing over here in Assemblies. It'll be blank. You don't have the full quantity options that you do in Construction Suite and Building Essentials. But what you'll notice for those of you that do, they're all red again. So that means some of the walls have the 1/2 inch and the 5/8. I would assume that's my garage walls. Some of them don't. Some of them probably, like my interior walls, are just using 1/2 inch drywall. So that's why we're getting different assemblies. But you will see that I can add and remove and edit assemblies on these options all at the same time. So if I wanted to make a massive quantity change, I can do that on all of my items all at one time. Part number you'll see is also highlighted in red, as it should be. Each element should have its own part number. So these are different things you can change en masse. So once they're changed, if I look at my 2x4 interior wall, go back to my basic tab, it's going to have the 20R value, and so will another wall in that same group because I changed them all at the same time. Okay, so holding down the Shift key enables you to select multiple elements at the same time, and you'll be able to edit them en masse. Great way to make an adjustment, things like appearances that you want to update, or basic information, maybe adding in R values and things along that line. Great way to mass update the objects. So that's changing and editing things in the catalog, from moving them around to reorganizing them, to bringing in new catalog elements, to creating new subfolders, and to editing things en masse. When I click OK here, the catalog will save itself again because I made some changes, and it always wants to save that catalog. The catalog is a separate file. It is separate from any project that you're working on. If I come up to File and Catalog and choose Open Catalog, you'll see that it'll allow me to open up a BDB file. That's the file extension of our catalogs. We ship with a master catalog in both Imperial and in the metric system. So you can open up either one of those catalogs or create your own yourself. So if you wanted to take the catalog and save the catalog as a different name, you could find it in Windows Explorer and give it an entirely different name. But by coming up here to save the catalog, it's just going to save that particular catalog as it is. Also under catalogs, we looked at the element manager, but there's also another part of the catalog. The element holds all the elements, if you will. It's got a great name. 3D blocks that you have, walls, anything that you're going to see in a project or use in a project. But there's other parts of your catalog, like line styles and hatch patterns and different settings that we also have to save as part of your catalog. So those aren't part of the element manager, but they're here under the library manager. Clicking on the library manager, it brings up a smaller catalog view of just those elements. So in here, this is where we house and organize materials, hatch patterns, different manufacturers that can be associated to different objects that you bring in, the line types that you use, the line weights, the layers that you create when you're bringing something to worksheets, the line styles, the text styles, dimension styles, labels, light sources, the assemblies in your quantities, usages and phase also in your quantities, and categories and unit of measurement. So these are all just different elements. So if I click on, as an example, hatch patterns, it'll show me the list of all of my hatch patterns. And again, this is where we've organized them, you can see alphabetically, and put some of the ones at the top, solid and none, because of their popularity. And you can see I created one called default one that we can take out of there as well. I could right click and say delete that pattern. So you could reorganize them again so that every time you apply a hatch pattern, if you know, I'm always applying a horizontal siding hatch pattern, I have to scroll through to find it. I know it's only seconds, but it does take time. Maybe just grab it and move it to the top of the list. It's the exact same as working in the other one, so you can grab something and just move it along as you need to. Also, under the library, you will find different configurations and libraries, sub-libraries in here as well. So when you're using the Kitchen Builder Wizard as an example, and it brings up that selection of cabinet styles, this is where it's getting those configurations. This is where they're saved. It's grouping together the different cabinet styles, and in there it also has a refrigerator, a cooktop, a sink. So all of these elements are grouped together and saved here as rustic gray raised panel or antique white flat panel. So when you use the Kitchen Wizard, it's looking directly at this part of the catalog to say, okay, they've chosen that style. Which range is it using? Which refrigerator is it using? So we can feed them in. So this is also part of the catalog. It's not individual elements, but it's showing them how to group them together. So if you're ever wanting to change and edit what's available in any of the wizard options, this is where you go to change them. The building configuration, the kitchen configuration, shed, bathroom, they all have different options associated to them, and this is where we group them. In here, if you wanted to create or edit them, it's as simple as selecting one of the configurations, right-clicking and saying, I want to add a new configuration. And I'll just keep it at the word new configuration. And then you'll see underneath that, it gives me the sub-elements that I need to populate. And so far, there's none selected. That is your warning that that's going to cause an issue. If I go in to use the Shed Wizard, right now it's going to fail because the Shed Wizard looks at all of the configurations that you've chosen and says, okay, I can choose that one. I know what these all are in the catalog. And then it comes to this one and says, oh, well, this one doesn't have any walls, roofs, floors, doors, or windows. I don't know what to do with that. There's nothing selected. And in the configurator, when you're using that wizard, it doesn't give you the opportunity to select. So it's going to fail. So if you're going to create a new configuration, make sure that everything is populated. So I'd have to select a wall type. I'd have to select by highlighting the roof and hitting select a roof type. The floor, select again, pick a floor, door, select a door, and window, select a window. Now that I've got defaults chosen, it can use that new configuration and there won't be an issue. But just by leaving one of those out and having none selected, it's going to cause a problem. So if you've ever tried to use one of the building wizards and it outright crashes, that's why. Under the library manager, under libraries, check out the configurations, make sure they're all fully populated. Also in here, we also organize all of the framing options. So this is where you would find the head sill and jamb configurations. So when you're wanting to set up new ways to frame around an opening, this is that list that you see in the choices that you get when you're in the building locations dialog box. So you can again come in here, right click, and add in a new one, or edit one of the existing ones that's close, but not exactly how you frame it, and just with a couple little tweaks, you can change it. Or if it's one you know you would never use, you never do any kind of log framing, right-click, delete it out of the list so that it's not there. All of the different framing configurations that you have will all be housed here as well. So you can come in here, efficiently update and change them, save it as part of your catalog so that it's always going to have that option there with your new updates made to it. I'm going to hit cancel here. So you've got your catalog to be everything that you want it to be. You've got all the different elements, they're all organized, and then Cadsoft comes out with version 13, which is going to have its own brand new catalog as well. You want to save your catalog because you want to bring it over into the new version 13 because you've created some great new blocks, you've rearranged and organized it to be perfect. How do I load in my new catalog, my old catalog into new version 13 of Envisioneer? Well, the first thing that I recommend that you do is out in Windows Explorer, you're going to save a copy of your catalog somewhere else. And I'm going to show you where we save the catalogs. So out in Windows Explorer, I just picked on the file folder down here. I'm using Windows 10. Under C, Program Data, Cadsoft Envisioneer 12, Catalogs, that's the directory where you're going to find the catalogs that I showed you. You'll find the master catalog. I would make a copy of it and save it somewhere else on your hard drive. So right here, you can say right-click and choose Copy. And then I'm going to scroll up onto my desktop and right-click and say Paste. And then I can give it even a new name. So My Catalog. So it's now called mycatalog.bdb, saved on my desktop. So when I'm in uninstalling and version 12 and installing version 13, I've got version 13 pulled up and I want to bring in my original catalog. I will go there and I'll go File, Catalogs, Open Catalog. And out on my desktop, I'll find my catalog.bdb and I'll simply just hit open. So it'll open up my catalog that I saved. Now, version 13 in the catalog is going to have some great new objects, some new materials to take advantage of. So you might want to bring some of those elements into your catalog. So open up Envisioneer 13 when you get it. Come up to File and go to Export and then say Catalog to BIM. Find all of those new elements in the catalog. Say it was, I'll just go and use the interior lighting. We'll use that emery light. Maybe you like that really neat emery light that we brought over. Transfer it, put it into a BIM file. So find all of those elements that are new that you like. Maybe make note of them in the catalog and then transfer them over to a BIM file. So then when you click OK, and I'll save this out to my desktop, I'll say this is new catalog elements that I want to take from my version 13 catalog, hit save, and then import them through File, Import, BIM to Catalog into my version 12 catalog that I've brought over and I'm using. So I'll grab that BIM file that I made from version 13, and then I'll just transfer them over into my catalog so that I have them. So even when we switch and update catalogs, you can keep your existing catalog, bring it into the newest versions of Envisioneer when they ship. Look also at the catalog elements that were part of the shipping catalog, BIM them out, and bring them into your catalog. A lot of information we covered today. Looking at different ways to import catalog elements through the object wizard or through BIM files that you receive. How to take a look at the element manager to reorganize those elements, creating subdirectories, deleting elements out, mass updating elements by highlighting groups of them at the same time. And we also took a look at the non-element objects in your catalog, like line styles, line weights, hatch patterns, configurations in the wizards are all saved in the library manager. We looked at that as well. What I'd like to do now is answer any questions that you might have about the catalog and how to organize it the best for your company. In the GoToMeeting console that should be on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a chat section where you can type in any questions that you might have, and I'll be able to read those out. No one else sees them but me, so no worries about being shy about questions. Every question's a great question, and I want to make sure that everybody fully understands the catalog, how to move things around, how to add them to it. So if you want me to go over something again, I will. And we can also know that at the end of the webinar, I'll be sending you out a booklet where you can read those things as well. So let's get to your questions. What happens if the element finish attached to the BIM is the same name as something already in the library? Great question. So when you're BIMing something out, so when I was BIMing in and out this table as an example, if in the catalog it recognized and had something with that exact same name, it's not going to bring it over because it recognizes that it already has that element and it's not going to let it come in. So when you're bringing things over, it will do a scan for duplicates. So let me show that to you. When I'm importing a BIM to catalog, I'm going to find the Emery Light. And I want you to watch down here near the bottom of my screen on status. So when I say document and transfer, it's scanning for duplicates because it doesn't want to bring in duplicate elements. It doesn't want you to overwhelm your catalog with the same element over and over again. So because I already had Emery Light brought in here, it's not going to bring it in again. It has to have a different name. So if you want to bring in something twice for whatever reason, make sure it has a different name or it won't come over. And that's also true for any of the library elements like the materials. When they're bringing them over, it's not going to bring them over twice. If they already exist and they're in the exact same location, in the same folders, it's going to just eliminate them from coming over because it recognizes that you already have it. So if something has the same name, but they're different, make sure before you bring them over, you rename them to a different name so it recognizes that they're different elements. Great question. Do you have a place to find a good BIM file with many line styles? The BIM files that we create, we put up on our website, www.cadsoft.com, and I'll go up there right now for you. If you scroll to the bottom of our page, you'll see under support and learning that we've got BIM catalogs. And by going to BIM catalogs, there we have all of the different BIM files that we create. Normally those are just objects like electronics, or you can see this one has furniture in it, all different ones. But that's a great suggestion of having one with just line styles and hatch patterns. So maybe in a future newsletter where we usually bring out new line styles or new BIM objects, we'll include a BIM file of line styles and different hatch patterns. Great suggestion, and we'll try to implement that for you. Okay, that is the only two questions that are up there. So everyone else, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask that question now. More than happy to share that with you, any answers that you might have for any catalog elements. If there aren't any further questions in the next few moments, I'll end off the webinar for you, and then I'll email you out the booklet about catalog management so you can read about everything that I covered, and there'll be step-by-step instructions in there as well. So if you learn better by reading and doing, then the booklet afterwards is a great option for you. We also record all of our sessions. So this will become part of our YouTube channel, and you can go up to our YouTube channel and look at past presentations as well. We also organize all of those past presentations on our website. So if you go up to Events and Training, under our Events and Training page, you'll notice that we've got our full calendar of different webinars that are going on, but over to the right is the webinar archive. And it's in there that we organize all of the past presentations. So you can click on any one of those options that you see there to take you directly to the corresponding video. Okay, let's look at questions. Okay, that seems to be all our questions. I hope everybody enjoyed today's class and you learned a little bit about catalog management. And I look forward to seeing you again next week in our upcoming webinars. Thanks, everyone. Have a fabulous week. Bye-bye.